Welcome to the talk on safeguarding. I hope you've come to the right one. My name is Nigel Heritage, and why is it me standing here? Well, I do an awful lot of safeguarding training for English UK, the Association of Language Schools. A little bit on my background. I trained originally as a teacher for children with learning difficulties, so I went through the 3-year training. And then I did that for a while. Then I went into ELT, and I was an ELT teacher, worked for International House overseas, and then started running junior centres. And I've done a lot with children. Then I went back to my original training and did supply teaching through the year and summer schools in the summer. And it was when that was happening that I realised that what we knew in the state sector about safeguarding wasn't getting transferred to the ELT sector at that point. I mean, I'm talking 10 years ago. And I thought, we could do things better here. And so that's why I've become more and more involved in ELT and helping to get safeguarding up. So, whoops, there's my little clicker. Look, there's a nice picture of you at work. Well, several of them. Really good. They're off your website, they're lovely. He looks like he's under 18, and they're definitely under 18. He possibly isn't, but we're stretching the imagination. So there you go. Now, just before we start, if you haven't been in this building, we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm goes up the stairs and out the front door. There are 2 toilets just here outside if you need them. Mobile phones is to remind me to switch mine off, which I've done now. And it's lovely that you're sitting close enough to chat to people, because sometimes I will ask you to discuss things with people sitting close to you. And you will always find out things from each other, so please be happy to share your experience. And ask me questions at any time. Please do. So, this is what we're going to look at in terms of the safeguarding. A little bit of background and legal. Very important, some practical considerations, including you and your household as well. Then responsibilities of the school, responsibilities you have. But as I say, questions at any time. And here's the first little bit of discussion. Just so that we are absolutely clear in our own minds, there's one question, and there's 2 more. What did we think with the first question? I'm going to pounce on a group. Start with you. What did you reckon around safeguarding and child protection?
We weren't too sure, but we thought safeguarding was more prevention and child protection was taking action, perhaps reporting a situation to the appropriate person.
Okay. More prevention and child protection was?
More, perhaps where you've got to report the situation to an appropriate person.
Okay, so possibly reporting. Yes, definitely. Any advance on that at the back?
Perhaps the child protection was being more aware of the child's history or situation.
Okay, really, let's hang on, we'll try over here. Anything to add?
So possibly the legal side, legal protection provided by the state rather than one law.
Okay, yes, and these again. Okay, right. Let's this. I won't open it fully because I know it's bad luck. But imagine we have an umbrella which is about looking after children in every aspect. And that is what safeguarding encompasses. Okay? It is the general thing, looking after children in every aspect. It's raining, you're going to take your student outside. What will you do?
Give them an umbrella.
Yeah. It's Maytime in England, it's snowing. What do they need? Extra clothes. That is safeguarding as much as the other things that you do. In fact, awareness is very much a big part of safeguarding and being aware. The clue to child protection is in this bit, protect. What are we protecting them from? Harm, and particularly, Jimmy Savile,
Sexual
abuse. Abuse generally. Abuse. So the thing about this is, as in protect, it's about protecting them from harm in any form, but particularly abuse. What are the 4 forms of abuse?
Physical,
Physical,
sexual,
sexual,
emotional,
emotional, mental, yes.
Neglect.
Neglect, exactly. Those are the 4 forms of abuse. And some people now also talk about bullying as the 5th one, because it's a sort of amalgam of all of them, and it's exacerbated by cyberbullying. So, you know, I've seen in various documents, some people are almost calling that a 5th form, because it's, and it also because it's so prevalent. But that is very good. Now, there are certain things that we do specifically about this. For example, a DBS check. Yes? That is very much about this thing. We do not want anybody who has a past record of inappropriate behaviour with children to have access to them. So this is a very important part that comes beneath our umbrella of safeguarding, but it's not the only part. Okay? Duty of care. What do we think now? Start over there this time.
It's our responsibility towards making sure the child is safe.
In a nutshell, yes. Yes, that's it. It is our responsibility to make sure they're safe. Is that a law?
Yes.
Actually, yes, it is. Yes, it's written as a law. That's one of the, I mean, there isn't the duty of care law, but it comes under one of the laws that we, particularly because we work with children, have a legal duty of care to look after them. Did anybody get as far as negligence? Did anybody get as far as that? What's that?
Negligence. Not being responsible.
Exactly. In a nutshell, it's not being responsible, it's not carrying out your duty of care. And in this country, it is potentially a powerful legal tool. If we don't do it properly, or if we don't have evidence that we've tried to do it properly, it can be used against us. In most cases, 99%, it would be a company thing. He says, look, so negligence is usually against a company. If something happened to a student, it would usually be against a company, saying the company didn't have systems in place to properly look after the child, which in the case of LLE is patently obviously not the case, because there are so many systems and things in place to do that. But that could be used. But that has to be in our minds, that when we're thinking, is something safe, will we be negligent to let it happen or not? Let's just think about this duty of care. There are a couple of phrases around duty of care, and that's one of them, which I think is quite a nice phrase. And this is a second one, which I think is wonderful, because that sums it up in a nutshell. And the expectation is that as a responsible and caring parent, you know what that is. Okay? Now, and don't forget, sometimes parents, the parents of children that you are teaching and hosting, they may think that certain things are okay, and they may give permission for their child to do something. Do they know where you live? Do they know your surrounds? Do they know what the culture is in this country? They may say it's fine for the child to stay out till whatever o'clock, because in their country that's normal. But you know that that isn't how things are done here. So you must remember that it's a responsible and caring parent as you would be, rather than exactly the same as their own. And those are some phrases which I think are rather nice things to look at. Just have a look at those. Are those the type of things that responsible, caring parents do? Any disagreements there?
What does that mean, respond and react?
Okay, that's a good question. That is around about if you see something that isn't quite right, do you actually make the effort to give a response, or do you think, oh, I can't be bothered, I'm in the middle of doing dinner, or do you actually react?
Oh, I react.
Great, absolutely. Excellent. No, I know, but some people think, oh, I'm too busy. You know, a classic, a friend of mine, actually my goddaughter's mother, my goddaughter was a middle child, and she came home and she dashed down to the cellar, and the mother said, don't go down the cellar, but she did. And then she said, when you're down there, don't get anything out of the freezer, because that was the thing, which she did, coming out walking, eating a frozen fish finger. But the mother was so busy cooking the dinner that she didn't, respond and react, which she should have done. So, yeah, it's important.
It does depend on the age, though.
Of course it does. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I said, yeah, it does. And I don't know what other battles they've been having and so forth. Yeah, no, that's a good point to make. And I haven't been a parent myself, but I have worked with a lot of difficult children. Do you know what tough love is?
Yeah.
Yeah? We used to watch Dame Edna, she was always going on about tough love. Tough love is what?
Being
They want
teaching
more
them tough
sweets.
lessons that they don't.
Yeah.
Say no. Even though
Say no.
they want to.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, you need to go to bed now. I know you want to stay up till 10 o'clock, but I know that you'll be better if you sleep. That sort of thing. Yeah, sometimes. All of that's part of it. We're not there to be popular, we're there to be caring and responsible parents. Okay. If you're not sure about these things, you might, oh, should I, shouldn't I? Turn it around. If that were your own daughter, granddaughter, niece, and why have I used the examples of Beijing or Moscow? Why those?
Cultural difference.
Very different culturally, and yes, and
Far away from you?
far away, which a lot of your students will be. And there's another key thing, capital cities. It's not just the language, it's the culture and the writing. It's the script is different as well. Okay? When I went to Beijing for the first time in October, I was really worried when I was going to go to Beijing Zoo on the tube. How on earth would I know how to get off? Thank heavens they've written the names in my script as well, so I knew. But I wasn't expecting that. The first time I went to Moscow years ago, they didn't. I had to, and that immediately, I'm an adult, and I was worried because I couldn't decipher anything. I don't speak Italian, but I can guess what some Italian words mean just by looking at them. But in Beijing or Moscow, I am totally stumped. So some of our students, it's similar for them. How would you, if your daughter, niece, whatever, you said to somebody, oh, I don't feel well, how would you hope they would be looked after? And that's quite a good measuring stick, I think. Okay, as well as the legal duty of care, there are other legal things you do have to think about. And you'll know about these because they're in the safeguarding and in the teacher manual and so forth. Yeah, it's all there. You have to do a risk assessment in your home because your home is also your workplace, and even I'm a self-employed person and I don't host students, but I have to do a risk assessment for my office upstairs, just for me. You must do a fire risk assessment about your home, and when you go out, anything like that, must have a gas safety certificate. Is a boiler service sufficient? No, it isn't. No, boiler service isn't enough, because all that does is look at the boiler. This looks at everything to do with gas in your home, the tubes going in, and any other appliances. One lady who was homestay in Bournemouth was very grateful when the language school she worked for made her do that, because when the gas man came, he said you could have blown up at any time. And he found, you know, so she
We
said...
had a similar incident with somebody whose the flue was not flowing properly in the conservatory.
Yeah.
And highly dangerous.
Absolutely.
And, we found out it was
And do you think of that poor family who went to Greece and their kiddies died because the hotel? It's worth doing, because we've got to get it right. This one, does that mean anything to you? Because this has to be actually named now, as it is in the safeguarding policy. Okay, this is about position of trust. What is the legal age of consent in the UK?
18.
The age of consent to have sex is 16. Yeah, for sexual relations it's 16. If you are in a position of trust, what is the legal age?
30.
Then it is 18. It's 18. In other words, if you are a teacher, tutor, whatever, it's not just education, it's the same in medicine and so forth, you are considered to be in a position of trust. Your relationship is not equal to your patient or to the student. So even though they may be 16 or 17, you cannot enter into any sort of sexual relationship. I'm not saying for many you would, but it's just that is the law. And then of course this may affect if you have students who are around 16, 17. Do you know what those laws are about? When you can buy, what about buying alcohol for somebody who's under 18? Is that okay? No, definitely not. No. And again, I can think of some situations. If you have some grown-up children yourself and they say, oh, we'll take the student down the pub and the student's only 17, and they say, oh, it's all right, we'll buy him a drink. Let's be realistic. A lot of UK students have been known to have a drink in a pub when they were underage. If something happens, that's when it can be really difficult. If somebody has too much to drink and they get knocked down outside, the police are going to start saying, who bought him the alcohol? Why was he drunk? Why had he had too much to drink? So this is all about duty of care and not being negligent. It's not worth breaking any of those sorts of laws.
Can I had a student that was smoking.
Smoking?
I had a student, 15-year-old one, who was smoking. And he bought cigarettes in Russia, didn't buy them in England.
Yeah.
And I said, look, but you still want you smoking in that house. But
Definitely.
I don't really want him smoking. It's
Sure.
safety element and things like that. So he used to kind of smoke, hang out the window or go outside and smoke. But I mean, he was too young.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's quite a difficult thing to do.
It is a
Doing it
difficult.
illegally.
Yeah.
I don't even know if his parents knew about it or not, but
Yeah. No, legally he shouldn't be smoking at UK under, sorry,
Yeah.
16, isn't it? You
UK
can't
laws
buy.
and
I know. It's
presumably follow our rules, do they?
absolutely. It doesn't matter where students come from. When they come to this country, they have to follow our laws. That is absolutely clear. And smoking is a difficult one if they have already started to smoke. However, that is
It's illegal to smoke
Yeah.
inside the prison.
Yeah.
and smoking inside is definitely it's a fire.
In-house leaning outside.
It's
No, it
really
doesn't
insurance
count.
as well.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody smoking inside a building is a complete no-no. And sometimes my cousin made his wife go outside to smoke. They live in Canada. Get them through a winter because he wouldn't have her smoking in the house. Oh, I think she stopped after the first winter. Prevent we'll talk about a little bit later because that is now another recent legal requirement. Okay, so all of that, you put it all together and look, it gets a 12 because it is quite important. There's a lot of responsibility involved in taking under 18, so congratulations to the fact that you do. Just now, having looked at that side of it, let's think about those practical things, such as you brought up then, you know, a young one who smokes. Have a little chat in your groups, for you yourselves. What are some of the practical things around safeguarding and under 18s?
What are they for you? They're an income, number one.
Yes, absolutely, yes,
That's
yes.
the most practical thing. And they're kind of visitors.
Right,
Visitors in our homes.
yes. I think that's a good way of looking at them, very much. Visitors. Welcome visitors, presumably. Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at it and think of it that way, then you think how you'd welcome them, but also how you'd help them if they didn't understand something. Yeah, definitely. Some considerations you talked about.
We talked about internet.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
which is a very important one. Yes, and what were the things that you were discussing around the internet?
Well, I had a problem last year as well. This thing about Wi-Fi and staying on tonight and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and
Yeah.
taking their machines off them.
Yeah,
Well, I wouldn't normally do that, but I had a boy that wasn't in it in the morning because he was on the machines all night. And
Absolutely.
he tried to do lessons. So
absolutely.
took away his iPad,
Yeah,
but then caught him upstairs taking it back again. Yeah,
yeah, sure.
Found it.
Yeah.
And in the end had to switch our broadband off.
Yeah.
And then caught him upstairs again in the evenings, switching the broadband back on again. And then had to take both away.
Yeah.
Just for his own protection at the end of the day.
Exactly.
He wasn't able to,
Go back,
he wasn't able to do the course.
precisely, rewind, a caring, responsible parent.
It's cheap.
You know, it's
actually quite abusive. My husband was furious actually.
Yes.
It's quite abusive of you at your own home.
Yes.
With trouble and stuff.
absolutely. But that is, I mean, there are children out there who are addicted to the internet. It's an addiction, and it doesn't help them to feed the addiction. And as you say, if he's incapable of waking up and doing the course because he needs help. Absolutely. That is a very practical thing that you have to address, and in the ways that you did.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. Anything else? But I mean, that's yeah.
Photographs. We're talking about
Right.
we can take photographs. We in school
Yeah.
you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Are they allowed to take photographs of us?
Yeah. Okay, the main thing around photographs, and that is addressed in the policy as well, is that for under 18s, the parents have to give permission that they may be photographed, and then the parents must also give permission that those photographs can be used for publicity purposes or not. It depends what you do. If you're taking a photograph just purely for your personal use, then that's okay. It's generally better to get into the habit of saying, is it okay to take a photograph of you? And then to say, and is it okay to post it online? Because those are two separate things. One is taking the photo. The second thing is, can I put it on my Facebook site? This is me where I am. Because that's a problem which they don't always understand. As soon as you put any photo online, it becomes public property and open, not public property, but it becomes open to the possibility of somebody taking it and corrupting it and taking that head and putting it on a new body, which is what happens to some people. So that's why when the parents sign the agreement, it specifically says about they may be used for publicity purposes. But students, as a matter of course, should start to learn to ask permission. Is it okay to put this on my Facebook site?
But also in the behaviour policy for the students, we say about
Yes.
asking the family
That's
if
right,
they
if it's
think
okay.
because of you and
Yes,
your family.
that's right,
because
yeah.
You might not like it. So
Yeah,
for them
yeah.
not to just take photographs without asking you.
Yeah. It's become, in the old days when it was just something you printed, that was kind of one, but now it's because of this worldwide publicity of the internet. So, sorry.
Oh, no, it's just like sometimes students, their friends went to the shop that my son was working in and came and took pictures of him. He didn't know who these people
No.
were, but friends of my student had,
Yeah. Yeah.
come.
Which is a bit of an invasion of his space and everything, yeah. And it's probably because they were saying some lovely things about him, and saying, oh, he's wonderful, you should go and see him in this such and such. But that's not the point. Absolutely. Anything you talked about in your group?
Appropriate behaviour, awareness.
Yeah.
I gave the example that my son always wears his dressing gown if he comes down in
Yeah.
his pyjamas. He had his big grey dressing gown on top as well. That when you have a student, it's no longer just your home.
Right.
It's many things.
Right.
It's a hotel.
Right.
It's
Right.
family experience and teaching, everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that becomes hugely important because although they are welcome visitors, it does change the dynamic slightly.
You're all professional. The whole household is welcoming and friendly,
Exactly.
but you're professional.
Exactly. And I think when you said that phrase, the whole household, that's hugely important. Because it isn't just you. If you go into a school, it's just you. But as soon as they've come into your home, it has to be all of you. Good point. Yeah. Great. Thank you for those. That's very useful. And look, you've touched on this already. How do you go about protecting yourselves as well and your whole household? There's a lot here in the policy, in the safeguarding policy, and it includes the code of conduct, which is about appropriate behaviour, what you were saying, such that you or members of your household can never be seen to do anything that could be misconstrued, misunderstood. And there are, there are some key concepts to think about here. Transparency is a huge one. As soon as something becomes public or transparent, it immediately loses power to be used against you. No, it's fine, you can see what I'm doing, look, it's clear, or I'm telling you what I'm doing. And if you're not sure about what's happening in your house, think about this. Would you be happy for the managers at LLE to know about it? And would you be happy for the students' parents to know about it? And if the answers are yes, then probably what you're doing is absolutely fine. But hold that transparency in your head, because that's a good measuring stick. Here are a couple of things I'm going to ask you to talk about. This group here and the group at the back. Could you talk about the top two, and this bigger group here, can you talk about the bottom two? Now, I just want you to think now, protecting yourself, bearing in mind what we said here about transparency and things. What happens if a student becomes infatuated? What could you do? And why, do you know what blind copy emails means?
Is that when you BCC?
That's right, yeah. Okay, let's see, we'll start off with this side and then we'll come over here and then we'll go back in. Number one, what sort of things you talked about? I heard you were talking about examples of when it happened. So how do you react if that happens? Protecting yourself.
Sorry, I kind of forgot that we were talking
That's
about
okay.
under 18.
Yeah.
But I personally, I just put a barrier up, keep it very professional, not cold, a bit warm, but a bit cool.
Yes. So you make, in other words, what you're talking about there is very clear boundaries.
Yes.
And firm about those, but not nasty. Yeah? Anything else?
But just make sure that they're having fun. If they're infatuated with another member of the family, you're not going to really have much chance.
Yeah.
So that they're, having fun doing other things. So
Right, yeah. So
they don't feel they're missing out on.
Sure. Don't let their infatuation spoil their holiday.
No.
Yeah, that's spoil their time. Sorry, it's not a holiday. Yeah, sure. There's one other thing that you haven't mentioned yet, which I would have hoped you'd have done.
Tell the family?
Tell.
LLE.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell LLE. Because as soon as that does two things. LLE, sorry. LLE. It does two things. One, it immediately makes it public, right? It's not just within your home then. You're saying, look, I don't think this is a problem. I think I'm handling this okay. You know, I put up the barrier. I just want you to know. Because they need to know. Because of what might happen later, way down the line. As soon as they know now, then it's fine. If you don't get told and then they get some complaint months down the line, and then you have to say, oh yeah, that was the student who was, well, why didn't you tell me at the time? You know, that immediately telling them makes it takes away. If you were working within a school, that would be number one. You know, if you were in a school building, go to your line manager, say, this student's got an infatuation with me. If it were really, really bad, I mean, you know, I don't think we come, but if it were really bad, presumably you could move somebody. You know, if somebody were interfering so much and they start, and it does happen sometimes. I mean, perhaps you've not had a thing.
Not like that, but I mean, we always say you never have somebody in your home that you're not comfortable with. If you're, you know, it's your home, and if you're not comfortable, we will act.
Yeah.
I did have one actually, but I did say to the girls that this is what I think of this student, and this is what, and I sort of kept an eye on them and used it as a list. I said, you don't have to be perfect, it's just say exactly what it
Yes.
is. It's just that kind of a person.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you know, sometimes people are a little bit challenging. Okay, number 3, what did you think about the car?
Well, first of all, the car's got to be roadworthy.
Right, definitely, yes. Yes, that's very important, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I want a teacher who doesn't drive. It's got to have passed its MOT.
yes,
You've got to have the appropriate insurances.
yes, yeah,
Obviously, they've all got to wear their seatbelts.
absolutely.
You wouldn't overload your car. You wouldn't put more people in than it could
No.
take.
So legal limits.
Um,
And where are you, if it's just you taking the student, where are they going to sit?
oh,
Where? Backseat. Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Is it zero?
Because he easily accused of making cancer.
Right. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but it cannot possibly happen that you could be accused of doing something if they're in the back and you're in the front. It's just, you know, the immediate...
Why would that happen in a situation in the car when it could easily happen at home?
Okay, I know, but it's just that a car is... Okay, it could happen in a car, but it can happen in cars as well. But you need to think about the home as well, and we're going to come to that in just a
Confined
minute.
space.
Yeah,
But then
it's...
when you're teaching them extra
Actually, there was a rule if you were class teaching and then taking a child in the car, then obviously the
Yeah.
person
in
said,
class.
Yeah.
Okay, but
And also it's an enclosed space. It's an enclosed space there. They cannot get out.
Maybe something that happens when you change gear,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And,
Your hand goes...
children don't know what to think.
And some people come from countries where they only have automatic cars. And I think, why does he keep putting his hand down there? Because he has to change the gear.
so what do you do? Because I seem to get these teenage boys that like sitting in front.
Right.
I know they'd say, well, I want to sit in front. I want to be in the front.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds like I've always sat in the front.
No, sure. Okay, what could you... Or it
So
could
you sit
be...
in the back.
Well, this is where... Okay, this is where you come down to... This is where you come down to house rules, regulations. You do, if they do sit in the front, what would you do maybe then? You could... it depends what sort of regulations you have about it. You should be thinking the whole time, how could it be so that nobody can accuse me of doing things. You could have a kid who gets car sick. That happens, unless they sit in the front. You know, that has happened sometimes. Again, I'd just contact LLE and say, we've got a kid who's car sick, so he's always going to sit in the front, for example. But it's those things to think about. Number 2, blind copying emails. What did you talk about there?
Just so there's no misunderstandings.
Yeah. No misunderstandings about things, and also it's transparency. any messages that go between you and under 18s. I mean, I'm not saying this is a policy, I'm just talking about this because this has recently come in. There's a couple of large language schools who are now doing this as a matter of course with all correspondence, so that nobody can ever be accused of inappropriate interactions with students over the internet.
So when would you, I mean,
What would be like?
sorry, when would that be? Because if they introduce themselves, we reply.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then maybe after, when the course is over, they might give in a bit of information or something that has happened.
Sure.
I might reply and
Well,
say, let me know. But there wouldn't be any reason to let anyone know about that. It's quite innocent.
Absolutely, it is innocent. But the thing about protecting you, and I know this hasn't yet been, this is not yet a policy, and it may not be a policy at LLE, but I'm raising it as an example of what's being done elsewhere. It's if a student sometimes accuses you later because they perhaps have a gripe against you or something, and they can say, oh, but somebody was, rude to me in emails or did something, and you think, no, I wasn't. And if you blind copied, it's like there's evidence. No, I wasn't. It's like extra evidence. So that's just to let you know of the sort of thing that some people are thinking about as a way of making 100% sure. And I must admit, I've only come across this in the last few months myself. I hadn't heard about it till then, but I can see why they are thinking that. It's just being 100% safe about things. But it's not to, don't worry too much, but I threw that in there. What about dealing with injured children? What did you talk about that?
Well, it didn't say the degree of injury, but we were sort of saying they're conscious.
Yeah.
We'd like it to be so that if you needed to make contact with that child, you had someone else with you to witness you.
Yeah.
Also, in the past, when I've had to deal with that, I would ask the permission of the child, and I would actually explain what I needed to do.
Those are the three key things. So ideally, if possible, do it with witness, if possible. 2, ask permission. And 3, talk through what you're doing. That's what nurses do in hospitals. That's what we did when we worked with children with learning difficulties. Even if they didn't have the understanding, that's exactly what we did. We just talked through. I am now touching your leg because such and such, or is it okay? I need to roll your trouser up to get to the thing. Just nice little chit chat, I've now got to do this. And again, it's about making something very open, and it couldn't possibly be misunderstood that you might be rolling the trouser up for any other reason. Okay, you talking about what's the difference. There's a few photos to look at. I want you to think about those. That one, wouldn't be 100% comfortable with that one. Why not?
Just touching her.
Yeah, it's very close, isn't it? I know in some cultures that's normal. Generally over here, that is best avoided. About that one. Think about the car. Where's she situated?
She's sitting next to. She's not touching her though.
No, not touching, but what's she got there? A wall. She can't get out. She's trapped.
Oh, God.
I know.
This is really quite a depressing session, I have to say.
Okay.
It's really depressing.
Look at this one.
I find it so depressing.
Feeling what's in there. We might not thought that she might feel like that.
Sorry, exactly. It's thinking about her. She's young, she's small. It's not about you, it's even about her. She might feel trapped. It's not that you're doing anything, but she's not going to feel possibly as comfortable where she cannot. It's about that for her. It's not saying that you're going to do something wrong, but it's just that's not ideal.
But isn't that also part of the duty of care and the safeguarding? You'd ask the child, where would you like to sit? Is it okay if I sit here?
Yeah.
And work it that way. So they may have chosen to sit like that.
Absolutely. But it's the sort of thing that is worth thinking about as well. thinking about that could be wrong.
Oh.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's...
And I just think this whole child, this Jimmy Savile thing is kind of had such a devastating impact on so many areas of our culture that I'm so angry about it.
Yeah. No, I understand that entirely. It's a bit like the first time when I worked with the children with learning difficulties and we went through this sort of process. I thought, oh my gosh, do I really have to? You know, I've been working with these kids for 20 years. And then I thought, actually, yes, I can see it makes sense. It's not an aspersion on me that I would do something wrong. It's simply making it safer.
And protects yourself as well from any...
Yes.
accusations that are untrue.
Yeah,
I mean, we've never had an incident of it in
No.
20 years we've been doing these courses. But this is just, like Nova says, just to think about things, you know, in a way that...
I think it's the being put in a position of having to think like
Yes,
that,
yeah.
which is so...
It's
my
not
mind
nice,
really
is
doesn't
it?
like
No,
it.
no, and I can understand that completely because that if you like, I've been through that process myself, having been a teacher for years and gone through that, this is crazy, and I've now come out the other side and thought, hang on, I can see, because as you say, it could be that actually the kid doesn't like that. And then when you see something like this, why is that considered a good way of doing it? From looking at peers, why is that considered good? It's not very clear, but can you see?
It's opposite. Nice lighting.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right.
You know, they're opposite.
Opposite.
It's more a teacher-learner
Yes.
situation.
The implication here is that the door is open, so it's not an enclosed space, it's more open, so that anybody who's walking could see. And just, I mean, another thing which is in some schools is required, hands are on the desk. So it's very open. So those are there just to think about them. Okay, you've touched on this already, I'm aware of the time, need to gallop a little bit, and I'm sure you do these things. This is, you mentioned, it's awareness for the whole household. You make your house rules, don't you, as to what's okay and what people need to do. And the students have their code of conduct, which is very clear, which is about behaving properly. And we've already talked about this. You know, due to cultures, there could be huge little gaps of people doing something wrong in your house. And just address them with explain, well, this is how we do it here. And you've already mentioned that, one of you. I mean, it is somebody who is unknown to you who's in your house, and just being aware of that. And 99.9% of them are fine. And every now and then there's a 0.1 who's a little bit strange. So, if you have one of those. Okay. Now, just to sort of bring this towards a close, the school, the organisation, has the responsibility for interpreting the various laws, because laws are never made for ELT operators, or hardly ever made for ELT operators. So they have to be interpreted, like duty of care. It's an umbrella type law. And the policy is there, and it is a policy, of course, that is reviewed every year, and I think it's coming up in May, isn't it? So, any good organisation will look at its policy and will try and update, and things always happen in safeguarding. They're constantly evolving, partly because of the Jimmy Savile thing. As more things happen, people develop it, so, things come in. And then, of course, there's this, that you are inspected by, such as the British Council, called Accreditation UK, and there are 107 criteria, or whatever it is in here, that have to be met. Whole section on care of under 18s. Most of it is common sense, but every now and then there are a few things that are very specific. And it's made more complex for an organisation like LLE, because in safeguarding, local authorities can set some of their own standards. So in some parts of the world, Kate has to do X, Y. In other parts of the world, she has to do X, Y, Z, and A and B in order to make sure you're met. That's one of the strange things about safeguarding law. Yeah.
Yes, I was wondering about this because some
authorities want you to register with them if it's longer than 3 weeks, don't they?
27 nights.
Oh,
Yeah,
27.
27 nights.
Yeah.
27 nights.
But because we manage that for you, we register them as private fostering arrangements if they're under 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, that is a thing. When I said laws are not made for us, they're not made for the industry. They are made as foster families for dealing with children who are suffering drastically at home and need to be taken into a safe place. So those are the regulations that exist. But that's what they're made for. But technically, if you have anybody over 27 nights, you've got to meet those regulations. So in some parts of the world, they say you have to have a health check. Because if you were putting a kid there who was in need, you should know that they're okay. But in other parts of the country, they don't ask you to have a health check. So it's very difficult for Kate, because and they are perfectly within their rights to set those sorts of limits. So, and then of course keeping you up to date, a few things. I know whistleblowing, I thought, shall I put that there? Well, yes, because although I know you work independently, you possibly have friends or colleagues who do the same, and it's just to let you know that this is now enshrined in law. A lot of it came out of what happened in the NHS, and people at the Staffordshire Hospital who talked about colleagues or practices they felt were unsafe, and then they were fired for that. And the law now says no, you cannot be fired if you raise any issues where you think a colleague is acting inappropriately, or if practices are not safe. It's actually your duty to raise those with management and say, we think things should be done better. So that's a recent legal thing. Prevent, in a nutshell, it's now a legal requirement for language organisations that we work to follow certain guidelines, and there's a new policy going to be issued with a bit of training to help you on that. It's about being aware of young people or adults, doesn't matter who may be drawn towards extremism, and if they show certain signs or behaviours that suggest they are heading in that direction, you're obliged to let Kate know, and Kate lets relevant people know about that. Again, very, very unlikely, but it's now
we fall within that law. So
yeah, we fall within that, and they've actually specified. That's one where they've actually said we fall within the law, so we have to follow it, and we have to talk. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask if that covers something like an underage student making disclosures, for instance, that they used to cut themselves or.
Okay, that would be more about that would be more of a welfare mental health issue if it were about that. This is about extremism, where they are proposing violent ends to gain their ideological beliefs. So, as an example, anybody can believe in animal rights, and it's wrong to use animals for experimentation. If you are suggesting blowing up the scientist who does animal rights experiments, that is extremism. Okay, so animal rights is one, extreme right is one. The one that gets most publicity is the extreme Muslim organisations who propose violent means to get an end. So we are all required to be aware and just to look out for anything and let somebody know if that happens. There'll be probably something in the policy which is not for your to worry about, but it may be that it's not an adult who is alleged to have behaved inappropriately with a student. It could be an under 18, another under 18. So there would be a certain thing to do to make sure that both the victim is supported and the one who's accused, because they are under 18. And these are hardly likely to affect you, but child sexual exploitation has to be mentioned now in the policy. And that's kind of come out of the whole Rotherham and Rochdale and all those places, to be aware that that could happen, and that FGM is illegal in this country, female genital mutilation. Okay, those are the things you have to do, which we've already talked about there. following the laws. And I think that's very, very important, sharing the policy with others in your home so that it's not just you who knows it. Doing your level 1 training and the prevent training, which you'll hear about soon. And then just in the very rare possibility that something does happen, that is of a child protection nature, i.e. anything around abuse, that becomes a confidential thing which you must tell Kate about, but you must not talk about to anybody else. Because it could be an allegation, it could be a rumour, it is not yet substantiated. And I don't know if you remember that poor chap in Bristol who lived underneath the girl who was murdered, and you know how the press, they had him, he was the one, and his life was made hell, and he wasn't the one, he hadn't done it. And that's an example of how loose talk when you don't know. So if anything ever happens, you just have to keep quiet about it and tell Kate and then not talk to others, okay? And your household needs that. And last of all, that you must know, which you know, Kate's the person you contact or any of the team here, communicate with them with any sort of concerns or any questions. That's the main thing, and they will help you.
Anything at all, and that just protects you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got that incident
Anything.
form, and sometimes things can start off small, and just record it on the incident form because through the week they could escalate, and then you can see how that's
Exactly.
developed.
And that's it, that's why I think like an infatuation, just record and say, hey, we think this kid's getting way over too keen on my son or my daughter, we think we've got it under control, but I'm letting you know now, and then you're ready if, any little thing, but it's much to protect you as the students. Okay? Any questions? I hope it hasn't been too depressing.
I mean, it really isn't to worry, but it's just these are the things we have to do within the law, and as a responsible organisation, we want to do things that are right and make it safe.
Absolutely, I absolutely get that. What I don't like is having to put myself in a position of a paedophile in order to get all that mess.
No, I know.
I find it really unpleasant.
Yes.
We all do. I mean, when we're working with people, this is the context of our society.
And what I know it is sorry.
Sorry, the code of conduct for students. Does that have anything in there about internet usage?
Yes. Safe. It definitely says.
It's in the safeguarding policy. It's in the
We
safeguarding
haven't
policy.
got anything about travelling back seats, so I'm going to put that in when we update it because that's very useful information.
We've got a format then if they say don't do it.
Exactly, that's the thing, and that is the thing that you need to have that supported by some regulations. But the way you dealt with the internet thing, I think, is admirable. It's even if things.
Please, I've got this child coming back again.
They sign now on the safeguarding form.
Yes.
We used to call it the character child form, we now call it the safeguarding form. And the code of conduct, and on there it says, I will not stay awake late at night, we changed it, after a time agreed with my teacher on the internet. And they sign that, they have to sign up for conduct, and that is in the code of conduct. I mean, the thing is, any problems like that, just call us. I'm really happy to be the baddie. I'm really happy because you've got many homes, you've got a good relationship with them. I'm happy to be the one who says you cannot do that. The internet's going off.
The problem is when you first come, you spend the effort working them out, and you don't know that.
Of course.
I had no communication at all, not over you at all, but I don't think there was any much honesty between the parents and LLE as to what I found out later his home situation was, and I think that's
often that's
and you just kind of pick it up, so you think, oh, that's really odd. And then you work it out, suddenly they're not getting up because everything's sick. You think, what's wrong? And then you find, it took me about 2 weeks to understand, but now I know he's about it, right. He's got to give me his own house.
That's right.
Such a time, and it affects the whole family. They've all got to have a broadband turned off.
But that could become, you can think about that as a house rule. I run residential centres, which I know is a little bit different, but when we run the centres for the very young children, we tell them before they come, we will take away your mobiles and your iPads at bedtime. So they know. And we now do a swapsy. We get your mobile, you get a hot chocolate.
My children.
But the home file, which is on its way to you, is going to be a file with the safeguarding policy, with our rules and with all the basic safety things in, you can slot in there. There's going to be pages
Yeah.
for you to slot in your house rules.
Yeah.
And if you've got a child coming, you can put in a
Yeah.
house rule sheet specific for that child.
Yeah.
And then it's in their room,
Yeah.
you can go through with the mom.
Because
that's
the-
going to be a useful tool, I think.
Students will respond much better if they sort of see that from the outset and they know that's it. You know, you can always, if you want, sort of perhaps bend a rule when you get to know somebody, but it's in your interest as well, isn't it? But yeah. Now, that's one thing. Somebody said to me, "Oh, I don't like working with children because I get so much more from working with adults." And I thought, yeah, but with children, it's never dull. You're always coming across new things.
And issues are very, very tiny percentage.
Yeah.
So this is not to sort of worry you. It's just we must know what to do if something.
Great, thank you very much.